Lenny's restaurant has been called the best breakfast in Clearwater since 1980. Tell me why.
Because it's the best breakfast in Clearwater since 1980. Now, my dad, he showed me this cartoon, and it was about two restaurants. One said best restaurant in the world, and the other one was best restaurant on the street, and everybody was trying to get into that one. So he's best breakfast in Clearwater. There you go.
His idea from the start?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And this was before, internet or anything, before, Google searches.
Yeah.
So it was a genius move.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me how the whole company started.
Well, he was in the restaurant business as long as I can remember. We were in New Jersey. We came from New Jersey. He was in a sandwich place, and then he managed a fast food place, and came down to Florida with that. And then he went to like Sambo's. He came out to Clearwater with Sambo's, and then they went out. And he said, "Man, I want my own place." So he found this place on 19, and that's how he ended up here. Was that your question?
Yeah. Do you think he planned on having his own restaurant from the beginning?
I don't know. He always seemed pretty comfortable working at one of these national companies. But I guess he started this in 80, so he was 40 years old. So he was still a pretty young guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess at 40, you say, you know what, I'm doing my own thing.
Realize he should settle down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me more about the building we're in right now.
Well, the building used to be an old ranch house. And are you familiar with the ranch house?
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah, explain to the guests too.
It was like an early kind of like a Denny's or a what's the place with the pies? You remember? Village Inn.
Village Inn, yeah.
It was something like that.
Gotcha.
An early version of that. The one thing I remember when we were little, we'd come to a ranch house and they'd have hot fudge sundaes with pecans in them, with lots of salt on the pecans. I always thought that was pretty good. But then, when I was in boot camp, they sent me a letter and they said, "Oh, we bought that ranch house on 19. We're going to open a restaurant."
Gotcha.
Wow.
When I first learned, I was thinking an actual ranch house, like cattle and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it was a chain restaurant beforehand.
It was a chain, yes.
Gotcha, beforehand. And then that one went under and the building was for sale?
Correct.
Gotcha. Very cool. So tell me about, I think you grew up in Long Island, right?
Yes.
Tell me about what that was like.
So that was in the early to mid 70s. And I was in elementary school, but it was Deer Park. I'm sorry, it was West Babylon, in Suffolk County. And it wasn't crime ridden at the time. It was, we walked to school, and part of the walk to school was through some little farm, and there was a horse, and we used to pick the guy's corn and feed it to the horse until he got mad. But my dad had a Jack in the Box in Long Island, and I think it was in 1969. He was so excited because he finally was making five figures.
Wow.
Yeah, $10,000. He bought himself a brand new MGB for $1,900, brand new, and built a house, a 2-story house, for $27,000. I remember.
Wow.
Yeah, those were the days.
Sure were.
But you were making $200 a week.
Yeah.
So
incredible. So did he manage the Jack in the Box, right?
He was the manager. Yes.
He was the manager. Tell me what it was like working with him as a kid.
Well, I remember I was about 8 years old. He would take me to work on a Saturday, and I had a little pair of black pants, white short sleeve button down shirt, black bow tie, and a paper hat. And he would stand me out in the drive-through on the opposite side of where they would hand the money and get the food, and I would hand out balloons, and that was my job. And one day somebody handed me some change, so I didn't know what it was, so I walked in. I said, "Hey, somebody handed me change," and they said, "Oh, that's a tip." And I said, "What's a tip?" And he said, "Well, they give you a little extra money because they appreciate you giving them a balloon." I said, "Oh, okay." So I went in the back and I got a piece of cardboard off a box, like an onion ring box, and I got a magic marker and I wrote, "Can I please have a tip?" And I knew I shouldn't have been doing it. So he was handing food out the window and I was on the other side. And when he was there, I held the sign down. And when he turned around, I held the sign up. And people gave me all their change. And I must have made 15, 20 bucks. I had pockets full of change. But he figured it out. He didn't say anything, but he thought it was funny.
That's awesome.
But that was,
very cool.
Yeah.
What other fond memories do you have with your dad as a kid?
Oh gosh, he one day he decided, let's go to Florida. He had family down in Miami, so we got in the MG and took off and drove down to Florida in an MG, which is not a great idea. So it would break down, and it was brand new, but it would still break down. And he would find these people, like a guy in Virginia that could do something with the transmission. I remember there's a guy in Georgia, all these backwoods guys. And I remember he brought a bag of $50, which in 1969, 70, they were still silver dollars, silver $50. He was using them for the tolls. But we did finally get down to see the family and everything. Went fishing and had to drive all the way back in an MG. Yeah, but it was fun.
That was years before you guys moved to Florida?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
How old were you for this MG trip?
I was probably 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around the time you're getting tips.
Yeah.
Right around, yeah.
Yeah, I was rolling in the dough.
That's awesome. So
Two big ballers going down to Florida.
Yeah. It was just you and your dad?
Yeah.
Oh, I just kind of assumed it was your brother and your mom.
No, we would do that afterwards. Like I think about once a year.
Oh, wow.
We'd get in the car.
Just the two of you?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Wow, it's really neat.
But yeah, we'd all get in the car. They had an old Nova, no air conditioning, and they both smoked.
So nice.
My brother and I are sitting in the back, catching cigarette butts that they'd throw out the window. And yeah, those were long trips.
Wow.
He would pride himself on being able to make it in 24 hours from Long Island to Miami in 24 hours.
It's a long trip.
Oof, it was a long trip.
Very long trip. I drove to Long Island for the first time and kind of get lost.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of forgot some stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, we find ourselves in the city, which is not the way to get to Long Island very quickly. So it took us about 24 hours, and I was not starting from Miami. So I can only imagine how fast he was hauling.
I don't know how he did it, because I went to school in Charleston, and I used to drive from Charleston to here, and that was 24 hours, I think.
Wow.
But
Charleston, South Carolina?
South Carolina, yeah. So I think it took 24 hours, but 24 hours
depends if you're making
not a lot
stuff.
of time.
Yeah, it's quick.
Yeah. He must have been going 100 miles an hour in that damn thing.
Very quick.
Yeah.
Tell me about your dad's sense of humor.
Well, he had a pretty dry sense of humor. He had a rough childhood, and so he had a pretty dry sense of humor. But in the restaurant, that was his audience. So he would have people in a booth, or somebody he would know, and he'd start some joke, and they would take forever. I mean, they would, Norm Macdonald.
Yeah.
Norm Macdonald type jokes.
Yeah, I love them.
Where there's a basic joke that'll take a minute and a half to tell, but hey, why not make it a half an hour?
Yeah.
So like the joke about the turtle. No, the joke about the guy in the bar throwing darts. If you want me to tell it, I'll tell it. But
go for it. So people would ask, I'd pour coffee and just be up front, and people would say, so it was your dad, and my brother's really doing most of the
like 99% of running the restaurant. I come in and help from time to time. But they'd want some history. So I'd say, well, my brother, and let me know when you know this, Joe, because I know you know this, Joe. He would, I said, my brother, when he was a kid, he used to work in a dive bar. He wasn't always here. He told me like it was a Tuesday or something, a slow night. And it was, about 12:30, nobody in the bar. This drunk comes in. And hey, how you doing? And my brother says, oh, geez, I'm trying to get out of here, He says, I can't serve you. You're drunk. He says, no, I don't want to drink. He says, well, what do you want? He says, I just want to throw a dart at your dartboard. So he says, a dart? So you can see how you can spin this one out. So he says, yeah. He says, well, I'm trying to close up. He says, come on, man, I'm really good at darts. He goes, oh, fine. Okay. So he finds the darts, gives him the darts. He takes one and he's waving back and forth, throws it, bullseye. He goes, oh, we got a bullseye. He says, great. So he says, so what do I win? So my brother's looking behind the bar. So what does he win? So on the way in that morning, he said that he had almost run over a turtle. So he pulled over, picked it up, and he put it in a shoe box, a Nike box that he happened to have in the back seat, and put it under the bar. And he said, I was going to give it to your kids the next day. I figured they'd like it. He says, but I'm looking for something to give the guy. And I said, all right, give him the turtle, because he realized it was a pretty bad idea anyway. So he gives him the box. And the guy goes, wow, great. And he leaves. Figure never see the guy again. 2 weeks later, it's busy. It's a Saturday, 10 o'clock, busy as hell. Here comes this guy cruising up to the bar again, drunk as hell. He says, listen, man, I can't serve you. He says, no, I don't want. He said, so my brother says, so what do you want? He says, oh, I want to throw a dart at your dartboard. He goes, no, man. He says, it's busy. You're going to hurt somebody. He says, no, I'm really good. And I got a bullseye last. He says, I know you got a bullseye last time. He says, but it's busy. Oh, come on, man. And people are listening. He said, let him throw it. Ah, shit. So he gets the dart, gives him the dart, and throws it, almost hits a guy, but another bullseye. So he says, I got a bullseye. What do I win? So my brother says, and this is, I'm telling a customer this. So he says, I don't know. What'd you win the last time? He goes, I think it was a roast beef on a hard roll. And in a restaurant, what a great joke. Because you go, oh, Jesus. Yeah. Okay, the turtle.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that's the kind of thing my dad would turn that into a half an hour joke.
Yeah, he'd just keep
because
going.
He'd have to, he'd say, oh, just a second, and go seat somebody, and then, oh, just a second, and go handle this. And
that's awesome.
So it'd take forever. And the longer it took, the funnier.
Just to wait for the punchline.
It was. And he would always say, look, if it makes one person laugh, and that's you, good joke.
That's awesome.
I told you about the fried nutso.
No.
So we have a board out front that you put letters on, specials and things. So there's a thing in delis, or it's called matzo brie. It's matzo crackers, like you'd get, and they crunch them up in a bowl with some scrambled eggs, kind of like French toast. Put them on the grill, and it's really good. Cinnamon sugar. People put fried onions on them. Where you put cinnamon sugar and fried onions and grape jelly, and it's just ridiculous. So he wanted to put matzo brie up on the board as a special. So he told one of the dishwashers, can you put up the sign for matzo brie? So he says, what's matzo brie? He says, well, it's fried matzo. So he put up the sign, and my dad went out later, and it said fried nutso. And he thought it was funny. Nobody knew what the hell it meant. But about every year or so, he would put that sign up. Nobody knew what the hell it meant. He thought it was funny. That was it.
That's awesome.
The whole sign on 19. Yeah. A sign that meant absolutely nothing except it made him laugh.
Would he be serving the matzo rye, or no?
Yeah, well,
when he hung the sign? Or he would do the sign just to...
You always have it.
Yeah, okay.
But he would put it up close to Passover.
Understood.
Because around Passover, that's a big thing. Sure. People eat matzah during Passover. Yeah. So people would come in. You're not supposed to eat leavened bread. Could be wrong. I'm not sure.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think it's
Yeah.
for Passover. So you're supposed to get rid of all your leavened bread. So all the Jewish people eat. We all eat matzah
Gotcha.
instead. We were supposed to.
That's funny. But he would just hang the sign just for the hell of it.
He'd hang it around the time where people eat matzah, but
no one
I guess
else
some people over the years he would tell some people a story, and some people would know, and they'd be
pick up on
inside baseball stuff.
Yeah,
but it was mostly just to make them laugh.
That's
awesome.
Thought
it was fun.
Did your dad like to cook?
He didn't cook at home, but he would jump on the line when he needed to. Yeah,
yeah,
he was pretty good.
He liked more the business of food.
He liked the business of having people like in his home,
Gotcha.
Taking care of people.
Yeah,
that's what he liked.
Yeah, he wasn't like a chef or anything like that.
No, he would be the guy to walk around
Gotcha.
and look for everything cool, and can I get this? Get you more coffee, and that's that kind of vibe.
Yeah,
that's why this place has that vibe.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah.
Before we get there, what was your dad's favorite food?
Oh God, it was either sour cream and blueberries and sugar.
Okay.
Or he would take chicken skins and cook them down, render them down with onions and I think garlic.
Wow.
And then you let that cool and you put that on rye bread. That's kind of an Eastern European thing.
Huh.
Yeah.
What was the first one? Cream cheese, blueberries?
Oh, no, sour cream.
Excuse me, sour cream.
Sour cream and blueberries. Or sour cream and bananas. And then sugar on it, so it's like crunchy.
Huh.
And,
a guy that owns a restaurant, that's what he's eating?
Yeah.
Wow, good for him.
Yeah, he wasn't a big foodie.
Wow.
My mom didn't cook.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's ironic, right? You guys own a restaurant. Yeah. I just assumed otherwise.
Yeah, no.
Awesome. So how important is baseball and spring training to Lenny's?
Well, now that the Phillies take care of their own catering, it's a lot less busy. But spring training for us with the Phillies, with the fans, is a huge deal because we see a lot of the same people every year, and it's always like old home week. Everybody's excited, and it's a lot of fun. Players still come in because we grew up in New York, so if it was the Mets or especially if it was the Yankees, and a Yankee came in, people would mob them. But for some reason, Phillies fans are super chill. I mean, they're like when it's time to freak out, you freak out.
Yeah.
But I've seen Ryan Howard in here, where people are going, "Where's Ryan Howard?" Nobody's trying to sneak a picture of him. Everybody's super chill. But on the other hand, the players are like that too. Like Charlie Manuel came in. He said, "Oh, I'll be here, on whatever day at 6:00 to sign autographs." That guy was here at 6:00. He signed autographs till the last person left, and he was so nice about it. He was chatting with everybody like they were his friends, So it's just such a nice. It's always nice.
That's awesome.
It's super busy, and everybody wants to go to the emergency room at the end of the season.
Yeah,
but it's really it's just nice.
Yeah,
it's just.
Was your dad a big baseball fan?
Huge baseball fan.
Gotcha. Very cool.
He played baseball.
I didn't know
that. He tried out for the Dodgers, or I think he tried out as a catcher. And he said, like a real pitcher threw him a ball, and he got it and went, "Nope."
Yeah.
Not for me.
Yeah.
But he played baseball coming
That's
up.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did he play in college?
He didn't go to college.
No.
Yeah. But I don't know where I think he played some minor league stuff. I'm not sure. Maybe my brother would know that.
Yeah. No way you would have known, but I was catcher and I played in college.
Really?
Yeah. So
nice.
I didn't know I had that connection.
So
with your dad.
You know how that hurts.
Yeah. I mean, the fastest I ever caught was 92, 93. Obviously pros are going over 100 miles an hour. Yeah. So very, very fast.
Yeah. And back in the 60s, or the 50s and 60s, they didn't have the same gloves.
They didn't have the same gloves or
Yeah.
the technology to really know. It could have been faster, it could have been slower, so it's hard to gauge.
Yeah,
Guys could have been
no
throwing
safety
harder.
gear.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you get hit with a 90-mile-an-hour ball.
Yeah,
You're going to the
yeah, it's
hospital.
gonna hurt. So who did your dad root for before moving to Florida for baseball? Were you guys more?
Well, we were
Mets
Mets fans.
You were Mets fans.
Yeah, first game I went to was a Mets Cardinals fan
Awesome.
in '69.
Very cool.
Yeah, I was introduced to the Mets in '69,
Very cool.
and ever since.
I didn't know. Did you guys become Phillies fans from moving to Florida in Clearwater?
Yeah,
Yeah, I figured.
because before the restaurant, he would go down to the stadium.
Mhm.
Spring training, he was never here, or Sambo's. He'd be down there hanging out.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He loved it.
So actually, I wrote some notes. I grew up going to Jack Russell Stadium, so that's where your dad went.
Right.
So for the people listening, that's where the Clearwater Phillies used to play. And then they rebranded to the Clearwater Threshers, and they moved the field. I think the new field was around 2004, I think, the new stadium.
I think so.
Right about early 2000s.
But I think the Bombers, they were the Bombers at some point.
That's like a amateur, like I think it's a softball team.
Is that the Grapefruit League?
Well, no, they're just
that a different
softball, so they would just use the stadium like in the off season.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They wouldn't be professional.
Okay.
But growing up, I would watch Ryan Howard. I saw Ryan Howard and Chase Utley when they're in the minors.
Guy.
Pretty cool. And then some other big guys I was doing research. Jimmy Rollins, he's a baseball analyst for MLB Network. Pat Burrell.
Is that where he is now?
And Cole Hamels. Yeah, Jimmy Rollins is on the MLB Network.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. To see him on
Cole
TV.
Hamels, was he a pitcher?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I remember, I was never a big baseball guy.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing a story about the difference between baseball and football. You know, you're guaranteed.
With the players union.
If you get hurt.
Yep.
They said when Cole Hamill, I think it was Cole Hamill, got called up, he went to celebrate. There's a place called Razzles
around here?
On 19.
Yeah.
Yeah, down near where the original Hooters is.
Okay.
So they said he went down there to celebrate, got in a fight, and broke his hand.
Oh, I read about this online.
Oh, that was Cole Hamels.
Yeah.
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 And then they said, you guys aren't allowed. Or
it was right before spring training, something like that. Yep.
Yeah. So
yeah, I was reading about that.
That was
pretty wild. Describe, so you briefly said, I didn't know you guys did the catering for the Clearwater Phillies. Gotcha. And then that started 1980, I guess, when the restaurant started?
I'm not sure. It started with my dad. I know he really put a lot of effort into getting them to come here.
That's awesome.
And yeah, we had it set up in the back.
Cool. So all the players would come here? I didn't know if you'd bring the food to them.
Well, it was the minor leaguers. Yeah, they would come. And I remember there were some times where we'd go to, I think it was La Quinta, or no, it was a hotel down by Countryside, and I remember having to drop stuff off there. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on back then. I don't
that's
really
really
remember,
neat. That's
remember a whole lot.
That's really cool because I did the baseball camps as a kid.
Oh yeah.
So I remember, obviously they would feed us and stuff too, but I did the baseball camps at Jack Russell and then eventually at the new stadium too.
Right.
As a young kid.
Yeah.
So pretty neat.
Yeah.
And then did you guys do stuff with the Dunedin Blue Jays too?
We did.
Yeah.
But we did with the major leaguers here too. So the minor leaguers, I know what it was. We'd go feed them breakfast. So we'd set up breakfast at the stadium. So I would go work with the minor leaguers, and then the manager here would go. He was the baseball guy, Kevin Shower, and he was one of those guys that, you know, if you ask him what was on the back of somebody's baseball card a certain year, what their year, he knew all that stuff. So he would go down and set up and cook for the majors. They even invited him to play poker. He said, you know, he was really he was in his element.
Yeah.
But he would remember. He said, you can't talk to them. You have to know what they want and just make it as the right time. You know, so I think a lot of it was talk, but he was in there working away, and it was a big operation. Yeah.
Why do you think your dad, or how do you think your dad related to the players and the staff so well?
Well, one thing he was had some experience as a player,
Yeah.
but he was such a fan. Um, I think he might have been even more of a fan than Kevin was. Um, and he was just such an authentic guy. So I imagine when he went down to talk to him, didn't seem like he was trying to snow him or
Yeah,
try to rip
impress
him
or
off or,
anything. Yeah.
oh, I used to catch. He was probably just a regular dude. And they said, and the Phillies being pretty much regular dudes, that clicked.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very
It,
cool.
it spoke to him.
Yeah. It's
So,
ironic because Philly fans are notorious for during the game to be rowdy,
right,
and celebrating really hard.
right.
But you wouldn't expect that out in the everyday. They'd be
There
calm and collected.
there were years where they would come in. Schmidt told me he used to sit at the counter with the guys. And I never saw anybody bum rush them. I never saw anybody crowd around their table. It was, and I'll tell you, if it was, and nothing bad about the Yankees, but if it was Yankees fans,
Different, yeah.
yeah, I mean, people were super, and you're right, because when it was time to freak out, they freaked out.
Yeah.
But when it was time to be chill, they were chill.
Wow.
It was really cool.
That's awesome. How is baseball and spring training, how has it remained a pillar to Lenny's?
Well, from what I understand, it's become part of the the Hajj or the the
The vibe?
pilgrimage here
Yeah.
for spring training is one thing you have to do is go to Lenny's, which is great. Um, but yeah, we still get, thank God, we still get the lines. And one thing that's nice though is when people come, the games are at 1:00, so we empty out at 1:00. We tell people just leave your car here, and you can get Yingling. You get hammered on Yingling, almost hammered. Can't get hammered because Dram Shop Act laws, but you can get one beer away from getting hammered, stagger down to the stadium, for, I don't know, what are the beers here, but they're nowhere near what they are down there. Go watch the game, stagger back. You don't, well, you're sober by then, but yeah, you don't have to pay for parking. You don't have to, it's, and you come back and this is your place.
Yeah, it's authentic.
Yeah.
Home away from home.
Yeah.
Very neat. Tell me about some other famous guests that have eaten at Lenny's.
Um,
Any off the top of your head?
well, James Woods came in one day.
Okay.
I was up at the register and this guy comes in and he says, "Hey, listen, my mom just had oral surgery. Is there a way we could get her in, in the back?" And I looked at him and he was being very low key. And I looked at him and I said, "Geez, you look like James Woods." And he looked at me, he didn't say anything. I said, "You James Woods?" He goes, "Yeah."
Well, that's cool.
I said, "All right." I got him in the back and his mom was really nice. She came up and we were talking. I said, "So what's it like having a son that plays all these bad guys?" She goes, "Oh, I love it when he plays bad guys." Yeah. And he was just a decent, he was a son. He was
Yeah.
being a son. Yeah.
Cool.
Didn't make a big deal out of anything. And you really have to look, because if he kind of looked like James Woods until he was right up close. But then when it comes to people that did make a big deal, but a fun big deal, Harvey Belson came in, and real famous drummer from the 60s. And he says, "Listen, my wife is Pearl Bailey. She's coming in, and we really don't want to make a big deal out of it. Can we sit in the back?" I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So she comes in, and she's, "Hey, everybody." And people were super nice, but nobody mobbed her. And we didn't sit her in the back. We sat her like halfway up the window in the front. And my mother was a huge fan. And she almost went up to her, then freaked out, and my mother ran in the bathroom. So, to hide, because she was so embarrassed. So I went around pouring coffee, and Pearl Bailey, she grabbed my wrist and she said, you look like the guy on the sign. I said, yeah, it's my dad. So she says, oh, that must be so nice. I said, yeah, my mom is actually a huge fan. She says, where's your mom? I said, she's hiding in the bathroom because she's so embarrassed. And she gets up, Pearl Bailey. You know who she is?
No.
Yeah, if you look her up.
Yeah.
In the 60s and 70s, she was everywhere.
Yeah, a little before my time.
Yeah, she was on game shows.
Okay.
She was on panel shows.
Yeah.
And she was a really good singer, entertainer. So she went in the bathroom, and we could hear him giggling in there. Damn, and then when later she sent some books and things and sent her picture, and he sent his picture, and it was really nice because people, it just seemed like most people don't want to make a big deal. They just want lunch.
Sure.
And if that's what it is, and you're not saying, hey, look who's in my restaurant. Like now, I guess you would take pictures. People would take pictures and post them. But I came back here one day, and Molly Ringwald was sitting right there. You know who she is. Oh, dude.
Man, I'm being honest. No, actress, musician.
Yeah, an actress. For all the boomers who had a crush on Molly Ringwald. 16 Candles.
Okay, yeah, of course. Okay.
Red-haired?
Yeah.
Okay. So she was sitting right over there, and walked back, and this is when things were really rough. And I feel bad about this, but that looks like Molly Ringwald's mom. So I said, are you Molly Ringwald? She goes, yeah. And I did the thing. I said, oh, I was such a big fan. She said, you want to sit down?
And you ate with her? That's cool.
Sat down and had a nice little talk with her. She was really nice. She was doing some dinner theater. This is before she reemerged as, a star again.
Cool.
I guess she's doing stuff now. But yeah, so there's a lot of people in and out.
Very neat. Describe how and why Lenny's maintains that charm. It feels homey. It feels authentic. Describe how you've held on to that.
Well, it's a good question. I think my brother has kept that up. And then as the staff comes in, it's a different kind of place to work. They say, oh, we're family. When they say, oh, we're family, that's a big red flag. But here, like my dad was very protective of the staff. So if anybody gave him a hard time, and in the Navy, I had a commanding officer like this. If there was a conflict with a patient, I worked in a hospital, they would take your side first. And that gave you a lot more freedom to do a good job, to be who you are, rather than having to worry that you're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So Danny's kept that up. My brother's kept that up, and people who like those corporate jobs aren't really comfortable working here, because it's a lot of personal stuff and a lot of
it's real.
Yeah. I mean, most people ask for certain servers, and they know their dog, they know their what's going on, and how their kid's doing, and you come in and you sit, and so it's nice.
Very cool.
I hate to say nice all the time.
No, but it makes sense. Yeah. Explain the famous complimentary Danish baskets.
Oh God.
Are you guys Danish?
No.
Okay,
no.
So we'll start there.
Well, there's the Danish baskets and the what do they call them? The relish trays. So when my parents, the relish trays are like when you get lunch, you get pickles or coleslaw or marinated tomatoes or whatever. It's really good stuff. But when my parents were younger, they lived in Miami. And there was a restaurant they used to go to, and I think they got married there, called Wolfie's. And Wolfie's had that. So in the morning you'd get Danish on the table, and in the afternoon you'd get pickles and all that stuff. So they liked that. So they said, let's do that too. And a lot of it's my grandmother's recipes. So that's a nice little thing too.
Very cool. So it's Wolfie's that inspired.
Wolfie's, yeah.
Wolfie's in Miami. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah.
Did your dad ever consider staying open for dinner?
Oh yeah.
You guys were?
He did. Yeah.
Oh, you were back in the day. Okay.
Well, when he came from Sambo's was 24 hours. So he said, as long as we leave the lights on. you have everything going anyway, so you might as well leave the lights on, stay open. And that lasted probably about 6 months
Tough.
because, while the lights are on, you can't sleep,
Yeah.
even if you're home. So, they they went to just dinner for a while, and then they just went to breakfast and lunch. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's been like that for a long time, ever since my
Yeah, for a
memory.
while when after I got out of the Navy and I was here, and then I was working with my brother. My brother was doing the mornings, and we said, "Yeah, why don't we do dinner?" We started doing dinner, but it's a different kind of server. It's a different kind of service. So you have a different kind of server, and it's just a different vibe. So it wasn't.
Breakfast and lunch fits Lenny's.
Yeah, it wasn't the hangover crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we did end up putting in a liquor bar.
Sure.
So that really, so we'd get the hangover crowd and, the stuff that, the potatoes with the cheese and the bacon on it and all that stuff that you'd eat on Sunday morning. Go, oh God, go home. But, that's kind of the crowd.
Gotcha. Your dad served in the Navy.
Yes.
Did he ever talk about his experience?
He did.
Did he have a tough time?
There was a lot of anti-Semitism, but on the other, that became a problem. But his problems were self-created, or just being a goofy asshole, if you can say that.
Sure, say whatever you want.
And I did the same thing, but there's a story, and honestly, I don't know how true any of these things are, but these are the stories. He had a tattoo of a whale on his shoulder. And when I was a kid, oh, what's the whale? What's the whale? He says, well, he was trained as a sonar technician in the Navy, and he would listen for, I went into, I looked at that when I was in, and you can tell by the sound signatures of what's out there, especially on submarines. You have to have it on submarines because you can't see. But he was on a surface ship, and he would look for submarines. That was his job. So apparently, they found a submarine during the Cold War that was supposed to be a Russian sub. They all found a Russian sub. Oh, so and parts of the story don't really wash because I would think a whale would have to come up at some point. But the story is that they found this thing. They thought it was a Russian sub. They radioed whoever they had to radio to for permission. They got permission. They dropped depth charges on it, and a whale came up. And then everybody got transferred. So he went to San Salvador to a listening station, a land-based listening station. And there were jobs for 5 guys, and there were 10 guys there. So half of his job was spearfishing. And he would, because there was nothing else to do. And he said there were natives on the island. It wasn't a very populated island, or it wasn't a very sophisticated island. So he would go down, bring up fish, and they would have fires set up for him, and they would all have parties. Whenever the Navy guys brought fish, and one of the things that he got in trouble for was him and a couple of buddies said, there's no game to shoot here. But apparently they all had guns. He says, you know what? Next time we go back, and they would go back through Key West when they flew home, they would get a couple crates of rabbits, which, now, that's, but back then, yeah. So they brought back a couple crates of rabbits, let them all loose. And he said in 3 days, it had all been shot and cooked and eaten. So they didn't even give him a chance.
Wow.
So, but he got caught for that one, and that didn't go well.
Short time in the Navy.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and then the fight, how he got busted.
I have no idea. I
Oh.
don't know. You're
I didn't
you're
tell you?
teaching me. I have no idea.
Okay. So were you in the military?
No, sir. I was a
Okay.
firefighter.
Okay, that's right. So when you're enlisted, you come in as, they call it an E1.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Navy, it's a seaman recruit. I don't know what they call it in the other services.
Sure. Yeah,
but,
private, I'm sure, right? Yeah.
So E1 is a seaman recruit, E2 is a seaman apprentice, E3 is a seaman, and then E4 is a third class petty officer, which is kind of like getting to be a sergeant. So third class petty officer is the first petty officer rank, which is you're kind of in charge of stuff, and then second class, first class, and then chief. So he was a second class petty officer, and he took the test to become first class and passed the test. Well, there's a period of time between when you pass the test to when you get the rank. But he didn't wait. He went out and he decided to go celebrate,
partied. Okay.
Like Cole Hamill.
Okay.
And got in a fight and ended up in front of the captain, and the captain busted him down a rank. So he busted him down from E5, from second class petty officer, to third class petty officer. Forget about first class. So if you're still following,
yeah,
he decided that's it, I'm out.
Yeah.
So his 4 years were almost up. So just before the 4 years were up, this captain came to him and he said, hey, I heard about, apparently you heard about the whale and this and that. He said, I heard you're pretty good. He said, I'm putting a team together and, I want you on the team. So he said, nah, I'm getting out. I'm done. I'm finished. He says, well, what could I do to keep you? And he said, you can get me first class back. So he said, well, that's two up. And he said, I get you second class back. He said, nah. So that was the end of it. Yeah.
Wow. Because you eventually joined the Navy, right?
I did.
You were a Navy Corpsman?
Yes.
How was your experience as a Corpsman?
That was a little patchy. You get put in a medical
emergency,
position. Now in the hospital, it's so you're 18, 19 years old when you first start, 20 years old. So in the hospital, it's pretty straightforward. So when I was in the hospital, the first command I had was Bethesda. So I was up on the surgery ward. And Bethesda used to be National Naval Medical Center. Now it's Walter Reed. But I was on the surgery ward, and people would come in, either get surgery or recover from surgery or whatever. And it was all pretty straightforward. And then they rotated me out to the surgery clinic where you actually had to do minor surgeries. When you're 18, 19 years old is not,
Yeah, don't have a lot of experience.
Yeah. And it was kind of a hinky thing. They were we weren't supposed to be doing it, but they had us doing it anyway. And it was the colorectal clinic / surgery clinic. So there was a lot of stuff that you don't want to see.
Botched operations.
And then, sometimes you'd go out in the field. Like one of my duty things was, ride an ambulance, or when you'd go out with the Marines. And there were some things that you see that you shouldn't. Now they do have a lot of counseling right away, but back then they didn't. So yeah, if you know somebody who's a Navy Corpsman, tread lightly.
as a firefighter, we would see
same kind of thing.
Anything you call 911 for.
Yeah. So when there are guys that love talking about their service. And a lot of times, like you would have certain weird stories that you could just tell without having too much trouble, because people like to hear those wacky stories. So you have a couple wacky stories set aside, but if you ask somebody about their service and they get quiet, you understand.
You don't want to
push.
We understand.
Same with you guys.
Yeah, with everyone, fire department, law enforcement as well. You never know what kind of calls
anybody on an ambulance
they've ran. Exactly. Yeah. So your dad's legacy has clearly been cemented in the restaurant. Do you think he ever
I hope to
foresaw 45 years in business?
I don't know. He died when he was 55, and his dad died when he was 48.
Wow.
So I don't know that he thought that far ahead. I know he said when he retired, he would want to get a hot dog cart.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be his retirement present. He never wanted to stop serving people. You know, which was really nice.
It was really about people then, less about the food.
That's kind of all it was. You know, people would say, like, they'd come into this place and they'd see the fixtures on the ceiling, and the fixtures that are from ranch house. And it's a wagon wheel with a spur, and it's real hokey looking. But back then it was just old junk. Now it's now
it's cool
it's
and
vintage.
unique.
Yeah. But back then it was just old junk on the ceiling, and his friends would say, "Why don't you replace that stuff?" And he'd say, I want to put the money on the plate." And he had friends who had restaurants who would say, "Why do you put so much food out?" Because that's what I would want. That's my house. And that's how I serve my guests. And that's why when you come here, you got to be ready, or bring a doggy bag home.
Exactly. Your dad would say, "I never want to be the richest guy in the graveyard." I think he lived by that quote. You just described his portions.
Mm-hmm.
How did he teach you that lesson?
Which lesson?
To possibly never be the richest guy in the graveyard. How did he convey that to you?
That's a good question. I mean, he just did it. Just like, somebody said something off color to one of the servers, he would march him out the door. If it was a woman and he said something nasty to her, he didn't have, and he would do it so that
made an example of them.
Made an example, which is a little embarrassing, but the servers knew.
It set the precedent.
Yeah, it didn't happen very often.
Yeah.
It was very, very rare. It was just how to treat people. You treat people with kindness, and you treat people the way. I mean, it's hokey, but you treat people the way you'd want to be treated.
Yeah, he really lived it.
He did live it.
He embodied it.
Yeah, and I would see him. When he would say that all the time. People would come up and say, "Hey, why don't you open one of these in Newport Richie? Hey, and he would say, he says, "Look, we take September off." They used to take the month of September off. He says, "I take September off, and in my off time, I spend all the money that I have. I spend all the money that I can spend." And he says, "If I made more money, what difference would it make?" He says, "So, like, I don't want to be the richest guy in the graveyard." And you hear that enough times, and you think, wow, it's not about making tons and tons. I mean, you make enough money to make sure that there's a roof over your head, and your kids are taken care of. But beyond that, it's about service. What can you do? And for example, we had the nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And the nonprofit was about, finding kids who need to find a way from where they're not going anywhere except into trouble, to we would try to get people in, really basically into P-Tech.
Yeah.
To get them in the trades, because that's then they can help people. So all that pay it forward stuff.
Yeah.
It never fails. So somebody would come to the restaurant and "I'm hungry, I don't have any money, can you help me out?" Yeah, somebody's being that upfront and honest. Yeah, help you out.
Yeah, it was genuine.
Yeah.
What do you think your dad would tell you right now? If you were to walking off the street and you hadn't seen him in a while.
Walked into the restaurant?
Yeah, what would he tell you?
Oh, what would he tell me?
If you were to see him right now.
Nice job. That was what he told me just before he died. We had a pickle factory, and I tell this to my kids all the time because it was so impactful. We had a pickle factory, and it was just starting out, and God, we were bleeding money, and having a hard time getting supplies, and And it was just I feel like any manufacturing thing is difficult, but a food manufacturing thing, oh my God. And we were standing in the driveway talking, and I said, "Geez, it's just killing me." He says, and I said, "I don't know if this is going to work or not." And he says, "Yeah, I'm really proud of you." He says, "You're busting your ass just like you should, and you're not shying away from it." And
Figure it out.
yeah, because he didn't go to college, he didn't go to business school, he didn't go to restaurant school. He busted his ass.
Yeah.
And pushed and pushed until it worked. And with the pickle factory, Jesus, can you pick anything more obscure? Where you don't have any examples? Well, we kind of did, but figure it out.
So we'll backtrack a hair. I did a bunch of research because the listener doesn't know what we're getting into.
Okay.
I found an article in the Tampa Bay Times
from
January 3rd, 1997. And I wanted to let you know, January 3rd, 97, I was 52 days old when the article came out. But after the Navy, you ended up in the pickle business.
Right.
And the article, you described it, and this was your quote, it was like having a tiger by the tail. That's how you described the pickle industry.
Yeah.
So tell the whole story. How did you end up in the pickle business? And kind of tell me what happened. Tell the listeners too.
Okay. Oh, tell them too?
Yeah, because they don't know what we're chatting about.
Okay, so you guys are going to be in on this one. So I was, much to my parents' chagrin, and if you have to look up chagrin, go ahead and take some time. I was, after the Navy, I came to work with my dad for a while, and then I went to college up in Charleston, South Carolina, College of Charleston. And I wanted to be a religion major, and then I wanted to be an engineer, and I went to Clearwater High School, so I had no educational background at all. And in South Carolina, that's saying a lot. I mean, it wasn't Dartmouth.
Yeah, it was different at the time.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Well, it was College of Charleston was pretty laid back.
Okay.
But even at College of Charleston, I wasn't prepared. From coming from Clearwater High School. Nothing against Clearwater High School in 1980, but it wasn't. Academics weren't.
Things are different.
Number one, yeah. So, so I did a couple of years at school, and then I bought a VW camper, an old VW camper. And this friend of mine and I decided we would drive to Asheville and work for a while and get a bunch of money together and figure out the next place to go. And we ended up working our way across the country. And I think I was in Provo, Utah, second route. And my brother called me up. He said, "You're not going to believe this. I met this girl in Vermont. I was driving up to see her. I stopped in Massachusetts to see Dad's cousin, Chuggy, who has a pickle factory. And he took me to the pickle factory. And it's super cool. And I want to get in the pickle business. And he's going to help us. He's going to show us what to do. And I want to know if you want to get in on it." And I was getting the road was getting kind of long at this point. So I said, "Yeah, sounds pretty good." Oh, and by that time, it was the VW had blown up. I was driving an Isuzu Trooper, brand new Isuzu Trooper. So I drove to Massachusetts, met Chuggy, and worked with him for about a week or two. Really learned how to do it. One of the problems was when my brother got there, he got there on a Thursday night to visit Chuggy and his family on his way to Vermont. So Chuggy said, "Hey, you want to come to the pickle factory?" Danny said, "Yeah." So they went. Well, what Danny didn't know is on Friday was screw-off day. So Chuggy went in, looked around, checked everything. Everything's cool. They went and got a massage. They went and got lunch and smoked cigars. And then Danny called me up. He says, "The pickle business is great."
Yeah.
He says, you don't have to do shit."
Yeah.
Okay. So I went, and it turned out there was a lot of shit to do.
Yeah.
But it looked like fun. So we loaded this huge trailer up, tanks and all the stuff. We drove it down and set up in Danny's garage, which was, is this a local thing?
Podcast?
Yeah.
Anyone can listen to it. So
Okay.
it could be Japan, it could be
Well,
Africa.
if you're in Clearwater, Florida, it's he was on Drew Street almost to downtown.
Okay.
So he was in a pretty nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we set up a pickle factory in his garage, and it took about a week before the police came. And we had to find a place.
Who busted you? Who?
One of the neighbors.
Oh, man.
Oh, it was rough.
Was it?
It was so rough that when we set up down in Largo, we set up in a butcher shop, and we're making pickles one day, and the fire department comes in with all their gear on.
Yeah.
So they said, "What the hell? We're right in the middle of production." So he says, "Oh, do you have a gas leak?" They said, "No, we don't use gas." He said, "Well, somebody called. They said they thought it was a gas leak." Now, I'm not wearing a mask or anything, but it's all the vinegar and all this stuff. So the one guy takes his mask off and he goes, "Oh God." And we're just in there.
Yeah, you're so used to it.
So he said, "Oh, this is what it is." He says, "Okay, yeah, sorry." And we sent him back with pickles and stuff.
Yeah.
And they thought it was funny. We thought it was funny. But we moved to Largo and worked there for a while, and then 7 years later we sold out to a big company in Chicago.
Yeah. It was called Two Bros Pickles.
Two Brothers Pickles.
Two Brothers Pickles.
Yeah.
And
Two Bros, the Pickle Pros. That's what they call it.
Two Bros, the Pickle Pros.
Yeah.
So how long was it operational in Massachusetts, or you brought it down and that's when you started?
No. In Massachusetts, it was Regal Crown Pickles.
Okay. That was your relative's company.
Yeah. Chuggy's company.
Yep.
And then, we opened this one down here.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And it was like 7 years, you said, right?
7 years. And
Very cool.
Big Monster came and bought us out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I learned in that same article, you came up with a unique recipe.
Yeah.
But you noted in 1997 you had some help. Right. You said that you had a University of North Carolina professor that specialized in pickles help create the recipe.
Right.
I was curious, where does one source a pickle professor, and how did they help you?
Well, all right. So everything with pickles is not the most dry business in the world. There's always shit going on. So the trade association is called the Pickle Packers International.
Okay.
So I went to them and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm having some trouble. Who do I talk to?" They said, "Oh, there's a guy in North Carolina."
I couldn't find his name. Google thought I was nuts looking up pickle
I have my
professor,
diploma.
UNC.
Because I went to acidified food school.
Okay.
My hand to God, I went to, I think it was North Carolina. I think it was, I have to look on the diploma.
Yeah.
But there was a class with a bunch of people in it, but it was mostly from canning and this and that, and how to preserve stuff, industrial stuff that people would have to go to, I guess. I went up and everything was about 4.6 pH level. That was like the whole thing. But we got to go through the lab, and the lab where they had pickles, and in the lab they also did baby carrots, which is just shaved down real carrots. If they put them in this, it was all this food magic stuff.
Sure.
So went to North Carolina to acidified food school and graduated. Wow. It was one college I graduated from.
Yeah, well, that's cool. That's very neat. So don't spoil.
Go Blue Devils, I guess.
Right? Exactly, UNC. So don't spoil the recipe, because I know the company was very proud that they said we kept your recipe.
Yeah, well.
That was in 97.
When I talked to the guy on the phone, originally I talked to the guy on the phone, and he said, "All right, tell me your recipe, and I'll tell you what's wrong with it." So I said, "Well, it's a secret recipe." He said, "Just tell me your recipe. There's no secret recipe.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same recipe. I just want to see what's wrong with yours." And it's kind of true. I mean, there's certain guidelines. Like with us, though, we used fresh pressed garlic oil. So there were no like chemicals. We used turmeric. We used real stuff, which was kind of expensive. But when our pickles were cut against a competitor's pickles, we always came out high because you could tell it tasted like your mom made them.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it's well, if you want, I can I'll talk to Danny. I give you we have an old recipe that when we would make them in a gallon.
Cool.
Out of just stuff from the store.
Yeah, make them at home.
But I'll talk to Danny.
That's awesome. You were telling me, was it like 40,000 pounds you'd have delivered?
Well, a 40-foot truck.
Okay.
And now they're 54 feet or whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
40-foot truck would have, and my math might be wrong, 20 pallets on it. Yeah, 20 pallets, and each pallet would have 2,000 pounds on them, more or less. So, yeah, 40,000 pounds a week.
Wow.
Of cucumbers. Yeah.
That's a lot.
A lot of cucumbers.
That's a lot.
Yeah, especially when they're not perfect and you have to go through them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have anything that was a favorite of yours in the pickle business? I found this story fascinating. I couldn't have written this story if there was an essay prompt. I would have failed this one. But I think it's fascinating. Did you have a favorite part of the pickle industry? It's a tough question. I don't know if you did.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I like when the truck pulled up, you opened it up, there's a certain smell that you knew, these are good ones.
All right, cool. Those were of fresh cucumbers.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. If they were good, oh my God, you could go through it literally a ton in an hour. If they were bad, you open them up and that smell.
You could tell.
And if they were real rotten, you'd go through them fast because they're rotten.
Yeah.
But if they're kind of rotten, some weren't. My God, it took forever.
Sort through them.
And yeah, it was rough. But yeah, that was good. Check day was always good.
Yep. All right. I'll give you that one.
Order day was good.
What was the hardest part of the business?
The hardest part was finding cucumbers. And that's I think why we got as much money as we did for the restaurant or for the factory, for the business, because we found out. Did I tell you about Rod Roddenberry?
Nope.
So the first convention I went to of the Pickle Packers International was in Charleston, and I had been a carriage driver in Charleston. That was my little job there. So I drove horse and carriages and did the whole thing. So
they still do that.
They still do it.
Yeah.
And I took my kids up there. I told them all the stories, all the carriage driver stories. Got on a carriage. They told the same stories. The kids had their mouths hanging open. They said, "Dad, you weren't kidding." Yeah, it was the real thing. So we went to Charleston. I felt real comfortable. I was on my home turf. And we went to dinner, and this one big grower took us all out to dinner, at his table. And they had the two brothers from Wetomta, which is a New York pickle factory. It's kind of weird, like being a sports fan. These people, and you go, "Oh, shit, that's the guy."
Yeah. Brian Howard's Pickles or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a guy from Chicago. I can't remember the name. I could dig it up, but his name was Gary Newman. And we're all sitting around the table, and the guy, the grower's name was John Faulkner. Really nice guy. He had his 30,000 acres over in Ruskin. He has God knows how many in Honduras and ton up in Michigan. So he always had cucumbers.
Oh, so all over.
Except for when it went from Michigan to say Florida, there were times where there were no cucumbers, and that didn't work when you needed them every week, every Monday morning. You needed a truckload. So I'm sitting at this table with all these guys, and I'm the littlest guy. I had just started maybe 6-8 months ago. So Rod Roddenberry was there, and Rod Roddenberry ran Roddenberry Pickles, which was a big, they made everything, peanut butter, pancake syrup, I think, in southwestern Georgia. So he had given a speech earlier, and my dad had passed away very recently. And his speech was about his dad passing away. So I went up afterwards and I said, oh, great speech. And, my dad, oh, yeah. Didn't ask who I was or anything. Then here he is at the table. So John Faulkner was talking to me about something, and Gary Newman said, so what company are you with? So I said, Two Brothers Pickles. And he says, you're Two Brothers Pickles? So my trick was, and my dad taught me this, he said, sell for as little as you possibly can. When you're starting out, if your competition is selling for $18, if your competition is selling for $20, sell for 18. And tighten your belt and live a little cheap until you can
then grow.
Yeah.
Build a name. Until
you have a name, and then charge 20.
Yeah.
I said, all right. So in the pickle business at the time, it was $18. And there were places I was charging $13.50, for wholesalers. So Gary Newman says, you're Two Brothers Pickles? And I said, yeah. He says, do me a favor, will you? And I said, yeah. Gary Newman. He says, raise your fucking prices. So I felt like he was yelling at me. I sat back and I looked over and I looked at Rod Roddenberry, and Rod Roddenberry shook his head, no. So he pulled me aside afterwards. He says, I didn't know you were Two Brothers Pickles. He says, listen, Gary Newman is just big enough. He says, I'm big, right? And I said, yeah. He says, Gary Newman is just big enough to be a pain in my ass. And forgive me if you're related to Gary Newman. I'm sure he's a very nice guy. He says, Gary Newman's a pain in my ass. And apparently you're a pain in Gary Newman's ass. So guess what? I'm your new best friend, brother.
Yeah.
So when the season would end in Michigan, I'd get a phone call. He says, hey, call this guy in New Jersey. Call this guy in North Carolina. I was going to these tiny little places, and he told me, he says, just drive. He says, if everybody's cool, if they can run it for you, drive around, shake hands with all these farmers, give them T-shirts, give them hats. Say Two Brothers Pickles on them. We spent so much money on T-shirts and hats and coffee cups. Holy shit. So I knew all these farmers, and I never ran out of cucumbers. And when we got bought out, that was one of the stipulations, that I go around with them and show them all the farms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the article said that you stayed with them 6 months.
Yeah.
After the sale.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the transition and stuff. Yeah. So that's what you were doing.
That's what I was doing.
You're driving around shaking hands.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun out in the country.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I found the story fascinating. I thought it was the funniest thing.
Oh, if you could text me a link to it, I'd love to see it. I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah, I've got my computer with me.
Yeah.
And I just thought it fascinating because I'm doing a similar thing where that's how I ran into you guys. I just walked in, I shook Kristen's hand and just said, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm working on. And you guys have been great.
See, you're a very approachable guy. And if you come off as a no bullshit guy. And one of the things I was always told to say, one of the things is, what would you do if you were me? If you're talking to somebody who you feel has more experience, or what would you do if you were me? Here's my issue. And you always lead in with, can you help me with something? And you lean in. And if they lean in, I'm sure you know this, right? If they lean in, you got them. Whether you're trying to sell them something, and I know it sounds a little.
No, but it's grounding, because it's not coming in that I'm this big guy and I've got all this,
Yeah.
It's just saying, hey,
people are decent. People will help you if they feel like they're not being taken advantage of.
Finagled or anything.
And very often, if you ask somebody, here's a problem I'm having. Can you help me out with this? Here's the thing. What would you do if you were me? And and anybody will help you because you're showing them that amount of respect and deference that that they're you assume they have the answer.
Yeah.
And if you come across as a decent guy, they'll help you, and you will get everywhere. I mean, that's how I built that business. That's how I built Bowls for Good. Because if you're trying to do something decent, if you're not trying to rip people off, there's tons of help.
Yeah, it's honest.
Yeah, I know a guy who hey, called, well, just the same thing. Hey,
Yeah.
call this guy in North Carolina.
One of the coolest things you said the other day, the first time we chatted, was I wrote it down, the quote, 5 calls and you're back in business. So I guess I said the punchline for you, but break that down for the people listening. How did you learn that?
Well, that's the difference between being stuck and being and rolling is sometimes just a matter of picking up the phone. If the path to success involves a lot of people, but it involves you driving your own success. You have to know what you want. You have to know what your skills are. You have to know what your resources are, what you can pull together. And if you really think, you got what it takes to do the thing you want to do, that's when you ask for help. That's when you sit down with somebody. Hey, can I take you to lunch? I want to run something by you. And that's when you can ask those questions. What would you do if you were me? So those 5 phone calls are very often, a call for a sale. A call for a booking. So if we want to set up an event, we do wood turning, which if you look up pen turning, wood turning, pen turning on YouTube or whatever, it shows you exactly what it is. It's a little woodworking thing. And we do it with kids, we do it with adults, but if we do it with a corporate group, that helps support a lot of going to kids groups. So after COVID, let's say, where a lot of businesses ground to a halt, how do you get started again? Well, one of the things my dad always said was sales solve all problems. So you got to get your sales cranked up. And whatever that means, whether it's sponsors, whether it's, this or that. And it requires a phone call, and it may just require a phone call for a meeting. If you want to pitch somebody, and you're a little shy about your sales
numbers,
techniques,
yeah.
Say, hey, can I buy you lunch? I want to run something by you. Well, shit, yeah, I'll have lunch. And while you're buying them lunch, now the power thing is shifted. The power, whatever they call it, the power dynamic is because you're the one paying the lunch. It just shifts enough to where, now I see what's going on. Not in a bad way. But then you can either pitch them, for a sale or sponsorship or,
or advice.
And, people who enjoy doing business, small business guys, I don't know about people in offices. I don't know about people who get degrees and end up, as analysts or vice presidents of this or whatever. But people who run their own businesses are so willing to help out, especially older people who are about had it.
Pay it forward.
They've done it. Yeah, because people help them. And it's just a good idea. So if somebody, if somebody's buying you lunch and you go, this guy's kind of an asshole. And if he's an asshole, but if he's a decent guy and he's sincere and you can see yourself in him.
Yeah.
And say, I remember when I was your age and this is exactly what I did. And the idea of being able to pass on that kind of information, 9 times out of 10, kids don't want to hear it. They don't care. If you want to sell your business to somebody, it's almost nicer. Maybe this is from my dad. It's nicer just to give the information. It's just nicer to give the help. It just makes you feel better.
Yeah, it's about serving, like you said earlier.
It's service, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, those 5 phone calls, it may seem like a mountain to climb. Just make one, And if you get shot down, Jesus, how many times have you been shot down and you asked a girl if she wants to dance?
Yeah, the worst thing they could say is no.
Worst thing they could say is no. Or a guy.
Yeah, anyone for any situation too.
Yeah. So what's the worst thing that can happen? You're not going to jail. Nobody's going to point at you and laugh. You just, all right.
Yeah.
Maybe they, and to be honest with you, anybody that won't help you wouldn't have been good anyway if they were forced into it or you paid them to do it.
You want to know something nuts that I challenged myself to start finding more guests, more locations, and to really build this thing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of challenged myself to say, how many no's could I accumulate?
That's a great salesman's trick.
Because
that's right.
It's way harder to get a yes.
I remember that.
So if I rack up 12 no's, I know I'm getting somewhere.
Right.
But if I rack up 12 yeses, it could take me a freaking month,
I remember that.
So
that's an old salesman trick.
1997, you sold Two Bros Pickles.
Correct.
In that same article, I think is my last thing I could reference from it, you noted you wanted to move to New Zealand to pursue wood making, and you wanted to make wooden toys.
Right.
Describe what you did after you sold Two Bros Pickles. Where did you go from there? What happened?
Well, we researched it. Did I tell you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Because it's kind of racist. The what I got from New Zealand.
I didn't know. Did you ever go? I don't know what happened.
Well, I'll tell you and do whatever you need to do with it. So we had the money from selling the place, the pickle factory. My wife at the time was from Germany. And we had a 12-month-old. I guess he was 12 months old then. So for some reason, I wanted to go to New Zealand. I don't remember why. So I started getting all the information on it. There was no internet, we connected up with a realtor, and it looked like we could afford to do it. And so I got a hold of immigration there, and they had this questionnaire for me. So the guy says, all right, you need to have this amount of money set aside for a visa. And I said, yeah. He says, now, did you earn it or did you inherit it? I said, I earned it. He says, okay, good. Because I guess, they want. So he said, how much college do you have? The problem ended up being I didn't have enough college. I didn't have enough money to
justify how much money you made.
Well, I didn't have enough money to justify not having that much college.
Yeah.
If I had had more college, it would have been fine. Or if I had more money, dropping out of college after 2 years, they weren't too impressed. But he did say to me, he says, "Are you an Asian fella?" And I said, "No." He said, "Okay, good." I said, "Really?" He says, "Are you a black fella?" And I said, "No." He says, "Okay, good." And I said, "Oh, I don't know if this is. I don't know."
Felt fishy.
Well, I didn't want to live in a place where that was cool.
Yeah.
Even cool for the government to say, much less, people in the street.
Yeah.
To be that racist. I mean, God damn. So we ended up not going, and we decided to look at Germany and look at an apprenticeship. They call it a Meisterbrief, a carpenter's Meisterbrief. So we went out there, and the wall had just come down. So I talked to a friend of my brother-in-law's who was a carpenter, and he had his Meisterbrief. So I said, yeah, so what's the deal? Because I had talked to another friend earlier who wanted to he drove taxi cabs. He had 2 taxi cabs.
In Germany?
In Germany. And he was always bitching about everything. And he said, I hate this. I said, well, what would you want to do? And he said, I want to get in the hotel business. I said, well, how would you do that? So he says, well, there's a program where you get your Meister brief. I said, could you sell the cabs? He says, yeah, I could probably get like $100,000 for the cabs. So I said, so you get $100,000 for the cabs and then they'll put you through school? I said, yeah. I says, well, what else would you do for money? He says, oh, they give you money while you're in school. And then they find you a job. I said, so why don't you do that? So he says, yeah, see, that's how Americans are. Everything's easy. I said, dude, you can sell the cabs, bank that money. They'll put you in school, pay you while you're in school, and get you the job that you want. And that's not good enough? Okay. So they have this Meisterbrief program. So yeah, I get a carpentry this degree, and they pay for the school. They pay while I'm in school. You know, you got a kid and a wife. They pay for that. And then they get you the job at the end. Fine. And we have the money from the pickle factory. So I talked to Thomas's friend, and he says, here's the problem. He says, since the wall's down, you got nothing but these East German carpenters. And he says, I've got guys with Meister briefs, and this isn't carpenter. These are fine woodworkers. He says, I got Meister brief guys with Meister briefs on roofs with hammers. He says, you ain't getting a job. He says, I would start looking around. So we went to Holland.
You actually went to Holland?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Looked around there. I was a little racist. For my stuff and and very stern and no sense of humor. I'm sure it's different now. But then we went up to, I picked up a copy of Fine Woodworking magazine. And I saw on the back an ad for Thomas Chippendale School of Furniture in Scotland. And Thomas Chippendale is one of the 3 great makers, British makers. So we flew up there, talked to the guy. He said, yeah, we have a class starting, and we found a house to live in. It was the gardener's cottage on some big estate, and half the house was the cottage was built into this wall, that half the wall was in the garden, half the wall was out. And I could walk to school every day. It was great. There a year. Was that the question?
Yeah, I was curious what ended up happening after you left.
So we ended up going to Scotland.
Yeah. And how long were you there? You said a year?
A year.
Gotcha. Because I did research for the people listening. I didn't know too much about woodworking schools. Mm-hmm. You didn't just go to any woodworking school. It said the Chippendale International School of Furniture is one of the best in the world and most renowned as well. I was curious, you said you went for a year. The programs now were like 30 weeks and then smaller than that. The biggest one was 30 weeks and then it was less. Was it the full year? It could have changed. I mean, you went to school there in the 90s.
I think it was your year. I know I left for a while, went down to France to a school down there, and then came back. But I think the whole thing was a year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then did they employ you when you graduated, or did you have to find work elsewhere?
Well, I came back. My wife came back. My wife at the time came back early because she couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Because she said they didn't like Germans there. All right. So she came back. She moved in to find a house in Clearwater. And I went to go get some Joe job, swing a hammer with a guy that I knew. And I got back in touch with the school. Well, we got chased out by a hurricane. So we were down here for a while. Big hurricane was coming. And a friend of mine from South Carolina, who was my biggest customer in the pickle factory, called me up. He said, Ben, why don't you come up here? There's no hurricanes up here. So we went to look, and it was really nice. And at the same time, we started talking to Scotland about opening a school in the States. and they gave me a commission for all the United States signed by Lady Huntingfield, which was the director's sister, and all fancy from the Thomas Chippendale School. So we opened a school in South Carolina. So we opened that school, and then we opened another school in Oregon.
Very neat. How long were you in Europe in total?
For that, about a year.
Okay, because I know you were in Scotland, then you were in England, and then you were in France.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess we were there longer before the school started.
Sure.
So probably maybe a year and a half, year and a quarter.
Very neat.
But during the school, I wanted to. They didn't really teach a lot of turning at the time, so they sent me to a local guy. His name was Ralph Curry.
Local to where?
Oh, local to Scotland.
In Scotland. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he had a place where he was a real famous bowl turner. And I didn't know anything about turning. I wanted to learn turning because we were learning furniture restoration and doing reproductions. Really good, like museum quality reproductions, restorations. So I realized that I didn't know how to do any of the turning, and really the turning instruction at the school at the time was pretty bare bones, and you weren't getting the results I wanted. I wasn't getting the results I wanted. So I said, yeah, I need to go to a turner. So they sent me to this guy who was a bowl turner, which had nothing to do with what I wanted to learn. But I ended up spending a lot of time learning to turn bowls with him. And he would turn these gigantic bowls. I built his own lathe from scratch, the whole thing. Real good guy. So I learned that, went back, then found a guy in Yorkshire, England, who made Windsor chairs, which that required a lot of wood turning. So I got a hold of him, and I got permission to leave school and go down, work with him for a while. He ended up coming to teach at Chippendale. Cool. And then I don't know if it was afterwards. For some reason, I ended up going down to France for another turning course.
Yeah.
So it was the south of France, in near Montpellier, and it was beautiful. And super chill, and it was a good experience because when I started running my school, I saw how they kind of did it.
Sure.
The rhythm of it, and how they did the days, how they worked the days out. So so it was probably a year and a half.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Which place did you like the most? Scotland, England, or France?
I would have lived in Scotland. Gee, that's a tough one. It's a good question. France had a particular vibe. With strictly turning. In England and in Scotland, you need to be relaxed when you do it. But if you've ever seen it done, the wood spinning, and you're holding a tool, and there's not a lot of room between you and the spinning wood, and
and
shavings are flying, and all this stuff is going on. So it's pretty intense, and you need to be able to relax. So in Britain, they would yell at you to relax. In France, they'd give you half a bottle of wine at lunch before you started turning, and you were pretty damn relaxed. Nothing ever happened, but
so one way to do it.
So France was a different vibe.
Yeah.
And I recently went back on a visit with my son, and it was the same thing. Cool. It was all that, I don't know, joie de vivre. I don't know what that means, but people there just enjoyed life.
Yeah, I haven't been there yet.
It's a good place to retire to.
Sure.
It's a tough place to build anything because people just chill. It's a super chill out in the country.
Yeah,
not in the city.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Scotland it was colder, and people. Well, I guess. Well, my experience in Scotland involved my ex-wife, so
yeah,
it was less chill.
Sure. Yeah. I get it.
So,
What kind of furniture did you guys make?
well, they mostly, we started with British furniture from 1680 forward.
Okay.
1680 was a big fire, the London fire. So they said, if anything's dated before 1680,
Yeah,
maybe, may not
too
be
old.
real. So it was, the first piece we had was we worked on was a Queen Anne bureau bookcase that they said was 1700 something, 17 early teens. And they went right to it, started taking it apart like it was a car, like it was nothing. And here in America, thinking, Jesus, this is before anybody thought of having the United States. So we got a lot of really old stuff in. A lot of, it was mostly all British stuff. We would get in, we were there when Hong Kong went back to China.
Okay.
So all the expats came back. We got a lot of furniture from there, a lot of old pianos and things. But we got in a lot of modern stuff too. So pretty much, they would give the students stuff to restore. I was restoring this teapot, and the guy next to me was restoring this. It was a snuff box made out of tortoise shell, and it turned out it belonged to Robert Burns. It was Robert Burns's snuff box, which was a huge deal.
Wow.
But student fixed it, and it came in the shop. I mean, it was a Chippendale shop, so people would bring wacky stuff.
Expensive stuff.
There was a cooking show, The Two Fat Ladies, and the younger one lived in Edinburgh. She had a bookshop. She would bring stuff in. She was really nice.
Very cool.
Supposedly the guy who invented Kevlar had a ton of money, and he would just go out and buy pretty much anything and bring it in. I don't know if he was really the guy or not, but yeah, that was the story.
Did you ever anticipate spending that much time in Europe?
Yeah. Yeah, now that I think about it, yeah. When we sold the pickle factory, I wanted to leave. Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't planned on coming back.
Okay.
Yeah,
What brought you back
we
to
sold
Florida?
everything. I sold my 71 Cutlass convertible before I left. Yeah.
Yeah.
My ex-wife brought me back.
Yeah, for your kids.
For my son,
yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten to see him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you made the schools in South Carolina and then Oregon.
Right.
Then you made your way back to Florida, and eventually you started a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the name. What was the name of it?
Bowls for Good.
Bowls for Good.
Right.
Tell me the story of how it started.
So I was working for a lathe manufacturer called Nova Technitool, and they make the Nova lathes, and for woodworkers, especially wood turners, Nova chucks are pretty universal. So they came up with that, and I went to work for them, being their demo guy and a sales guy and all of that. So they had me out at woodworking clubs trying to sell their gear, but everybody already had their gear, So I had gone to a woodworking show where a company out in Utah would set up a booth where they had lathes set up, and we talked about pen turning. Well, it's like an entry level way to get into wood turning. So they would set up, and you could put your name on the list. When it was your turn, you could get on a lathe, turn a pen for free, and be on your merry way. Well, that hooked everybody. 9 out of 10 people ended up going home with 10 tons of stuff.
Yeah.
So I said, how about I do that instead of going to, they said, where are you going to go? Well, the next thing that was happening was the St. Pete Food and Wine Festival. So I took a bunch of lathes to the St. Pete Food and Wine Festival, and people got on them. And I sold a bunch of lathes. And that's what I started doing. I started going to these festivals. And eventually they said, you really can't afford to do that anymore. And, so I had heard about this this charity called Empty Bowls. And what it is it started out as a thing kids they did with clay. So it was for feeding America. And what would happen is kids would make a clay bowl for this Empty Bowls event, and then the parents would be invited, and the parents would be obliged to buy the bowl, or the kid would cry, and then all the money would go to feeding America. It was great. So I said, Jesus, why don't we do that with bowls? So we started doing it, and then Nova said, listen, we can't afford to do this. And then I took a little bit of money and I said, you know what? I'll do it. But the idea was to do it as a way, originally it was a way to get the lathes out to the public. Because on one sales trip, I think I was in Iowa, and we were doing this opening for a woodworking business. We were doing an open house. And what would happen is all the representatives from different companies would come. We would all stay at the same hotel, and they'd all go out to dinner and get drunk. Well, I don't drink. So what it turned into was they would all get drunk and start talking, and I'd start taking notes, you know. So in this Iowa one, I didn't rent a car, and this guy would drive me in every day. So he was from General Tools up in Canada. So he said, you sell a very limited thing. You sell lathes and lathe equipment. That's it. He says, I sell everything. I sell table saws. Everybody knows what table saw is. He said, but the only place people are going to get their hands on a lathe are in a brick and mortar business or in a shop class. And shop classes are getting fewer and far between. So it's going to be brick and mortars. And he says, and you watch your sales. He says, when your Amazon sales outweigh or outpace your brick and mortar sales, get out, because eventually there's going to be no place for people to put their hands on a lathe, and nobody's going to know what it is, and nobody's going to buy them. So I mentioned that to the president of the company, and that's how we got into going out to these festivals. So when they said, yeah, we can't afford to do it anymore, I said, all right, how about this? How about I set up eight different franchisees up the coast? I'll find them, because I was in these business marketing things anyway. I said, and what we're going to do is do this Empty Bowls thing, and people will come and they'll make a bowl for free, and we'll do that, and the money will be made on selling the wood, selling lathes,
the equipment.
So I said, but just make sure, I said, they said, let us know in advance how much equipment you need. So I went up the coast, went to all these BNI meetings, and I got 6 solid guys that wanted to do it. Had the whole prospectus, had everything. So it was, I guess, summertime, and I said, we're gonna open around Thanksgiving so that for Christmas we're ready to go. I said, okay. Well, we needed so many lathes. Well, it turned out by the time the delivery time came, they didn't have them. They were still in China.
Already sold or whatever.
Well, they couldn't deliver them.
Yeah.
They couldn't deliver them here so that I could sell them. And Christmas came and went. All those guys disappeared. I said, oh, God, now what? All that money I invested into getting this all set up, just out the window. So we opened a place in St. Pete, and we started doing it. And every year we'd have an event here to sell the bowls. But it was killing me because we had like no income other than selling a few lathes here and there. And one year, the woman from Feeding Tampa Bay, it's called here, said, you do these once a year, and the event costs $5,000 to do. And instead of doing one of these events, because we have to get paid, The event costs $5,000. Why don't you just do like a fundraiser? And people have to wait for their bowl. So we do them around Christmas time. So if somebody turns a bowl in February, then they have to wait till December to try to buy it back. And a lot of times with kids, it was a disaster because they'd start crying. So she said, how about this? How about you make something that you can charge people right there for, and do events and sell like pens. And instead of bowls that take 3 hours, a pen takes 20 minutes. And then we have a program called the Mobile Food Pantry. And I think back then it was like $2,500 or $3,500. They would bring a 30-foot refrigerator truck to wherever, set it up with conveyor belts and food. And if you didn't have volunteers, it would be their volunteers. And they would do 300 boxes of food.
Wow.
For $3,500, $2,500. So we worked out that a pen was worth a box of food. So that's what we started doing. And every time we had enough money, we'd do it, or we'd build to the next one. Say, hey, come and do this thing because our September food drive. And then we started getting corporate participation because they wanted to look like big sports. So it started shifting to just pens. And then we do bowls, if somebody want to learn bowls. We got an agent who would send us out to colleges. And we'd work there. And we never sold lathes after that. What we do is we'd send them to Woodcraft or to call Nova directly. We couldn't be bothered selling the lathes. So it got real busy. And now we're starting to work with Visit Tampa Bay. So now we find out 18 months in advance who's coming, what corporate groups are coming, and who their planners are.
Yeah.
So we can get with their event planners and say, hey, do you want to add this? And this is how it benefits you. So it developed into that. And now we're working on an overseas project where we fold in, say kids groups from overseas with kids groups here, and you have that kind of back and forth. So it's kind of nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever find yourself? Did you think you'd get into that? I guess into a nonprofit. Did you foresee that?
I always thought I'd be in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back at Lenny's or another one?
Here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's it's a good business model. It's a good thing to do if you can find something to do if you can find a mission, a legitimate mission. Because you can do some good. Somebody told me once that this woman asked Gandhi what the meaning of life was, what the purpose of life is. And Gandhi said the purpose in life is to find somebody to help and help them. Not to help everybody, but find one person to help and help them. And that almost became the mantra of of Bowls for Good. That we talk to these corporate guys, especially like tradesmen, things like that, and say, you're gonna work with a kid. All you gotta do is help one kid. If you can help one kid out of the shit, help a kid you figured out how to get out. Almost like mentor this one kid. And, instead of like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, which is a great organization, you're put together with a kid on a lathe, doing something.
Yeah.
And you have that kind of thing going. And I've seen it happen a few times where, you'd be good doing what I do. Because you talk to a 16-year-old kid who dropped out of high school, they'll get him his high school diploma at P-Tech. They'll pay for him to go. They'll sponsor him.
Yeah.
And they'll put him on the truck with a guy to work. So he's making money. And you tell a 16-year-old kid who's looking at selling dope and eventually going to jail,
here's a way out.
I was like you. Now I'm making $80,000 a year and I have clients and I want to get out. How about I train you up to do what I do and make what I make? And you buy me out. How about that? And that tells a kid, Jesus, I'm not the piece of shit everybody tells me. This guy who's a real guy,
believes in me.
sees something in him. Yeah. So, Jesus, and now I think about it, that's what my dad taught me. Just find that thing. Just help one guy. Just help somebody. Because if it's the right guy, and it always is, 9 times out, not everybody's going to take you not everybody's going to come in here and say, "Oh, I'm hungry. Can you help me?" And then take that hamburger out and sell it.
Yeah.
I mean, people are decent, and really, if you help somebody, it you'll get burned, but when you're ready to go in your box, you'll know that
It was worth it.
It penciled out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How would children find you to be a part of the program?
Well, typically it's at-risk kids, so it's the programs. So we go through. In the past, we've gone through. There's a group in Pinellas. I can't remember the name. Well, typically we contact like Sheriff's Youth Ranch. We have a relationship with them. We have a relationship with Police Athletic League. We work with Girls Inc. So it's usually an agency getting a hold of us and saying, "Hey, we heard that you do a thing. Is that something that you could do here?"
Yeah. Word of mouth.
Yeah. Well, not so much word of mouth, but just in the industry. Well, word of mouth, I guess.
Yeah, for the people in the know.
Yeah.
Very neat.
The director of the Lealman Police Athletic League, mentions, "Hey, listen, these guys will do this thing. The kids, it really helps the kids."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So I know the pandemic made it very difficult to keep the nonprofit going.
Right.
But I think from my understanding, it's still hopefully going, right? It's in the upswing.
It's on the upswing, yeah.
Awesome. Very cool.
I have to make 3 more of those 5 phone calls.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully this could be a part of that. And I can put some links in the description as well.
Yeah.
Very neat.
Yeah.
So what are the goals for the nonprofit going forward?
Well, we're just starting with Visit Tampa Bay. So, with that, we can get wood, say, from Tampa Theater and cut it up and make pens out of it. People can come to Tampa and make pens out of wood from Tampa Theater and take that home. Or a cigar, we can make cigar holders out of wood from a cigar. These old
the old
warehouses.
Factories, yeah.
There's always tons of wood floating around. So I'd like to start doing that again, and I'd like to get the overseas program started again.
Describe how that was working beforehand.
Well, that was just before COVID.
Yeah,
and
it was just starting.
We had initially this minister from the South Side came to see us and said, "Hey, listen, you guys work with a lot of African American kids. Can you get wood from Africa? Because that would be meaningful." And as I make everything 10 times more difficult, I said, well, to myself, well, why would I just do that? Because I could go to Woodcraft and get it. Why don't I why don't I find a kids group someplace in Africa and get wood from them, ship it out, and then we can, do an exchange. Kids are kids. So I got a hold of this. It turned out the best way to do it was to get a hold of woodworkers and ask them who the legit charities were. So I got a hold of this woodworker in Rwanda, in Kigali, Rwanda. And she was 27 years old, a Dutch woman that had lived there for 5 years. And she said, "Oh yeah, there's this women's group and they sew and they escape violence with their children.
Mm-hmm.
They have this little place set up, and the kids could certainly use books or whatever, school uniforms, and so we started working with them. They sent us a video, Um, and then somebody said, well, you've been, wouldn't it be easier just to start out with the European ones that you've been to? Like,
Yeah, Scotland, England, France.
yeah. So we started doing both because we were looking at Kigali, Rwanda was the only one that really worked out, but I had to sell it to corporate groups. So the idea was that a corporate group would agree to do it, say, okay, I want to be in on this deal. We worked out 15 pieces of internet content, from when we shake hands and say, oh, we're going to do this, and this is the country, and to when they send us the wood and we have the package, and then we show the package, and then we have all the kids from the other country coming on camera saying their first name, and then we show that at the group, let's say at the police athletic league, excuse me, all these kids are watching this, and they all pick a kid to be their friend, their pen pal. So they have the wood, they see the box on the video, here's the box, it's really from Africa, or it's really from France.
Where it came from, yeah.
And they'll make pens and have that. And then they'll make, Kids Here will make pens from wood here with the sponsors, with the corporate sponsors, and pack it up and maybe put some t-shirts in there from the sponsors or some candy or whatever for each kid, something for each kid, send it off. And then the idea was that we would have some kind of an expense for the group in the other country. And initially they all wanted, we need a roof, it's 20,000 euros or whatever. So I said, listen, with these corporate groups, we don't want to work them over too hard. I said, the first time through, let's see if we can do one successfully. If we can do one successfully, we'll do a second one. But the first time through, let's do something, like around 500 pounds, 500 euros, something like that, which really means chickens or a garden or something
Livestock,
like that.
yeah.
Something simple. So you go through all of this stuff where this one's making pens and this one's making pens and this one, and pictures of these kids and this, and it's all with the sponsor being, hey, I'm
Thanks to you.
I'm in here too. Yeah. Thanks to this guy. The last one is the kids in the other country in their garden holding up the sponsor's logo, saying, we want to thank you guys for our chickens. If it's Irish kids with their little Irish, ruddy cheeks with their Irish accent.
Yeah.
Saying and my thought was then the sponsor cries and I say, you want to do another one? I said, hell yeah, I want to do another one.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing was about 3 months for about $7,500. And you could do a couple different sponsors because then you just edit it a certain way.
Yeah.
But part of it was always that, listen, they want you to come and thank you personally. So the original pitch, because everything has to be a pitch, is I would say to you, where in the world would you want to go on vacation, let's say, and have a friend there? So you would maybe retire there. You talk to a guy my age who's getting ready to retire, you go, especially in these big businesses, I've been a prick my whole life. I need to, I'll do this good thing and then I'll be,
Yeah.
Well, if somebody says, oh, Edinburgh, Scotland. Well, at the end you say, well, we got to go to Edinburgh, Scotland. Well, that's a nonprofit thing too, out of the company. So the company pays for you to go to Scotland. You get off the plane, they shake your hand. They go, hey, listen, we really appreciate everything you did for the kids. We're having a big party. All of a sudden, you're the big guy now. And that's the pitch. And that's how they get their 20,000 euro roof, So, it's all, those 5 phone calls gets the ball rolling. Maybe at the end of the day, this guy gets to retire in Albania in the mountains with with his own chickens.
Could be anywhere.
And he feels good about himself, and he's a big hero, local hero, and he's actually done some good. And he takes the rest of his money and he says, I can keep doing good stuff. They needed a roof. Well, now maybe I build them a hospital, So you never know. Once you start going in that direction, instead of, just piling up money just in case something bad happens, you say, well, how do you feel when you're looking at your bank statement? Oh, okay, got the money and got all my stuff squirreled away. I'm going to be okay. Well, on the other hand, they bring you some tomatoes because they grew some tomatoes. Hey, we want to, hey, I thought you might like these. Well, holy shit, everybody at home thinks I'm a prick. You guys think I'm cool? Well, I'll tell you what, I would like to build you a hospital. I would like to build a center where people can learn how to do plumbing and electrical and
give back.
building. Yeah, to give back. How does that feel? You get a taste of that. That's addictive. So yeah.
Well, I hope this could help. Hope. That's awesome. Hopefully this could help you. So I have a gift for you. I didn't tell you that. So all of my notes are all in field notes.
Okay.
So these are cool. These are made in the US.
Okay.
They're a brand I really want to support and work with.
It's I was wondering where you got that.
They're really unique. Yeah, I'm getting them online. The goal is hopefully to be working with them.
Mm-hmm.
But for every guest I didn't tell you, I got you your own field notes.
Oh, nice. Cool.
And they always look different. So some of them are black or gray.
That looks real military.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So this was cool. This one, they teamed up with Hat Show Print Company.
Mm-hmm.
They're out of Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And they still make original handmade posters and stuff.
Wow.
So they used what was a poster
mm-hmm.
To bind this one. Pretty cool, right?
Wow, that is cool.
It was pretty neat. But that's for you.
Well, thank you.
You get your
man.
own field notes.
Oh, that is cool.
They fit in your pocket.
Yeah.
And every guest gets one. So the more that these come out, people are going to know they're getting a gift.
Great.
But you didn't know
beforehand.
I had
this, and
exactly.
Everybody has this.
So now you got one as well.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So I wanted to thank you with your field note. I truly want to thank Dan. I want to thank, Ben and his brother Dan and Kristen for letting us use Lenny's restaurant to film this episode.
If it wasn't for Dan, this place wouldn't be here.
Exactly, your brother Dan. So I really want to thank you guys. Hopefully we could do this again.
Mm-hmm.
And for everyone listening, I hope you can help come in, check out Lenny's in Clearwater, Florida. They're open 7 days a week.
7 days a week.
For breakfast and lunch. And they're a Clearwater staple. So.
And if you're tough enough, you try the Redneck Benedict.
All right. Recommendation.
Look that one up.
So the final question to every episode is the mantra for this project. And it's never waste a mistake.
Right.
And it's the best lesson my dad's ever taught me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool and poetic because he didn't say, never waste your mistake. It could have been someone else's, someone I worked with, my own dad's or anyone else's. So the final question for every episode is, what is one mistake you have not wasted?
I thought a lot about that. And I think maybe a little businessy. But when I opened the school in Oregon, we were supposed to open at a town in the mountains. But what I didn't realize was we were supposed to live in the town in the mountains because there wasn't anybody there. Beautiful shop. But as soon as I decided we were going to move to Eugene, Oregon, and I was going to drive into the school, that deal stopped. Unfortunately, the tractor trailer with all our stuff was on the road already. So I met a guy who had some property, and he said, I can help you out. I have a storefront. It was a great location, great. The only problem with it was I couldn't fit enough workbenches in it to make it pay. So with the school, for each student would pay their tuition. They would have their workbench. It didn't pencil out. There weren't enough benches, not enough tuition to make it a going thing. So after a year or so, I had to close it. And failing in a business is a tough thing, but it's an important thing because that'll teach you some stuff. Yeah, you'll learn a lot from your successes, but you'll learn more. People have said this. You'll learn more from your failures. And just like your dad said, never let one go to waste. So if I had done my math, I wouldn't have had that problem. And ever since, any business I got into, or pretty much anything, if you want to flip houses, you want to do this, you get into the Carlton Sheets thing with houses. They always ask you if it pencils out. Make sure it pencils out. Do your math. Think things through, and save yourself a lot of grief.
Yeah, measure twice, cut once.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yeah. Very apt.
Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.